5 years, 1,825 days, 45 times, 400 cc each time. I was Adrian's walking blood bag for 5 years, only to save his beloved white moonlight. I thought the tattoo on his wrist representing my blood type was love, until his white moonlight recovered, and he threw a pregnancy test report in my face. Abort it, your blood cannot be wasted on a bastard. Later, I faked my death with my child, disappearing from the world. 5 years later, I returned with billions in capital, personally crushing him under my feet. He knelt in the rain, his eyes bloodshot, pointing to the hideous new tattoo on his wrist, begging humbly, "Sarah, look, I'm RH0 blood type now too. Use my blood, draw my life, don't look at him again, okay?" Today is Adrian's 1,825th day with me, a full 5 years. For 5 years, he spoiled me rotten, with gentleness and affection, making me mistakenly believe that the deep affection in his eyes was love. During my period, he would personally cook brown sugar ginger tea for me, warming my lower abdomen with his warm palms, his voice low as he scolded me for being greedy for coolness. On rainy nights when I was afraid of the dark, he would push aside contracts worth hundreds of millions, drive dozens of kilometers back, just to hold me in his arms and gently pat my back. He even showed me the new tattoo on his wrist on my birthday, a string of letters representing my blood type, RH0. He said, "Sarah, this is the mark I carved for you. You'll never escape from my heart in this lifetime." I was overwhelmed with emotion. I tiptoed and kissed him, telling him that I would never leave. I loved Adrian to the core. So when he told me that someone very important to him had been sick for many years and needed regular blood transfusions, I agreed without hesitation. My blood type is RH0, commonly known as panda blood, extremely rare. I was willing to use my blood to save his important person. Every once in a while, I would go to a private hospital to draw blood. Adrian would always accompany me, and after I finished drawing blood he would hug me with heartache, feeding me all kinds of tonics, making me look ruddy, he said, to ensure the highest quality of blood. I thought the tattoo on his wrist representing my blood type was his unique love for me. I thought his pampering and heartache for me was because he loved me. Until today, that important person of his successfully underwent surgery. Adrian was ecstatic, and booked the top revolving restaurant in the city, to celebrate for me. He raised his glass, his eyes full of undisguised joy. "Sarah, thank you, you are my biggest contributor." Looking at the smile on his handsome face, I was also sincerely happy for him. And I also have great news to tell him. I'm pregnant. An hour ago, I received the hospital's pregnancy test report, which showed that I was already 6 weeks pregnant. Adrian and I finally have a crystallization of love. I hid the small piece of paper behind me, my palms sweating with nervousness. I wanted to give him a big surprise. But after a few rounds of wine, he suddenly took out a document from the inner pocket of his bespoke suit. "Sarah, sign this." I could see the gilded words on top clearly. Divorce agreement. The smile on my face instantly froze. My brain went blank. My ears were ringing. "Adrian, what do you mean? Today isn't April Fool's Day." Adrian picked up the red wine glass, gently shaking the scarlet liquid. The look in his eyes was cold and estranged that I had never seen before, as if looking at a worthless stranger. "Isabel is back." Isabel, the sick person he mentioned, his white moonlight hidden in his heart for 5 years. So I used my blood to save my love rival. My heart felt like it was being clenched hard by an invisible hand. It hurt so much that I could hardly breathe. So, my voice trembled, my nails digging deeply into my palm. "So you want to divorce me? Otherwise." He chuckled, the laughter full of taken-for-granted cruelty. "Serafina, you didn't really think I loved you, did you? You're just a mobile blood bag. Isabel's health isn't good. I always have to find someone to keep, ready to provide her with blood at any time. These 5 years of being good to you was just to make you happy, willingly obedient, to ensure the quality of the blood." Every word he said was like a poison-laced knife, slowly slicing me to pieces. The more than 1,000 days and nights of 5 years, those gentlenesses and pampering, instantly turned into a big joke. I forced back the tears that were about to burst out, and took out the pregnancy test report that I had crumpled a bit from behind, with the last shred of hope, humbly handing it to him. "Adrian, look. I'm pregnant." It's our child. The last bit of warmth on Adrian's face disappeared completely, replaced by extreme disgust and coldness. He snatched the paper, only glanced at it, and then threw it hard in my face. The edge of the paper grazed my cheek, bringing a slight stinging pain, but it was far less than 1/10,000th of the pain in my heart. Then, I heard the most cruel words in my life. Abort it. He looked down at me, his eyes as cold as ice, without a trace of emotion. Your blood can't be wasted on a bastard. Bastard. I felt like I'd heard the biggest joke in the world and laughed softly. The laughter was shrill, like an old saw, tearing at my riddled heart. Tears finally flowed uncontrollably, mixing with the makeup on my face, making me a wretched mess. Adrian frowned, the disgust in his eyes deepening. Are you crazy? I wasn't crazy. I was just, in this moment, completely awake. I bent down, trembling, and picked up the pregnancy test report he had thrown on the ground, carefully smoothing out the creases. This was my child, my only connection with the man I had loved for 5 years. But in his eyes, it was just a bastard that would waste my blood. I raised my head to meet his cold gaze, my voice hoarse and unlike my own. Adrian, you use my blood to save Isabel, but have you ever considered, what is my blood? Really? He scoffed, as if looking at a clown making unreasonable demands. All I know is that your blood can save Bella's life, and that's enough. Just then, the phone in his pocket rang abruptly. The name flashing on the screen was Bella. The frost on Adrian's face instantly melted away, and the tone he used to answer the phone was one of tenderness and doting that I had never heard before, as if it could drown a person. Bella, are you settling in well after the surgery? Don't be afraid, I'll be there to keep you company right away. That extreme tenderness was like a red-hot iron nail, hammered brutally into my pupils. After hanging up the phone, the look in his eyes returned to that impatient coldness. He grabbed my wrist violently, his grip so tight that it almost crushed my bones. Stop playing games, Serafina, let's go to the hospital now. I struggled desperately, protecting my lower abdomen, my voice pleading. No, Adrian. I beg you. This is our child. I said your blood cannot be wasted. He dragged me, like a piece of lifeless trash, ruthlessly towards the outside of the restaurant. A sharp, stabbing pain came from my lower abdomen, and my face turned deathly pale. Adrian. My stomach hurts. It hurts so much. He didn't stop, but instead pulled even harder, his tone extremely cruel. Good saves the doctor the trouble. As we reached the elevator entrance, the elevator doors opened with a ding. Inside stood a woman, wearing a pure white dress, her face pale, her temperament gentle and weak, as beautiful as a fragile painting. It was Isabel. Seeing Adrian, a look of joy appeared on her face, but when her gaze fell on my wrist, which he was clutching, her smile faltered slightly. Adrian, who is this? Adrian subconsciously hid me behind him, as if I were some shameful, dirty thing. He spoke to Isabel, his tone overflowing with tenderness. Just a disobedient blood bag, don't mind her. Blood bag. So in his definition, I wasn't even considered a person. Isabel smiled softly, but her gaze was like poison-tipped needles as it landed on me. Adrian, don't be so fierce, you're scaring your sister. Dear sister, since you're Adrian's blood bag, you should be obedient, otherwise the blood quality won't be good, and it will affect my recovery. Her words were gentle yet venomous, each one piercing my heart. I felt cold all over. Looking at Adrian's handsome face, I asked, word by word. Adrian, if I were the one who was sick today, would you let Isabel give me her blood? Adrian seemed to have heard a joke, and a cruel arc appeared on his thin lips. You don't even deserve to be compared to Bella. Those 3 words crushed all my dignity and love to dust. Isabel coughed weakly twice, leaning against Adrian's embrace. Adrian, I'm so dizzy. Adrian immediately held her anxiously, and then, without turning his head, coldly ordered the 2 black-suited bodyguards who had appeared behind him. Take her away, clean her up immediately. The bodyguards grabbed me, one on each side. I watched helplessly as Adrian hugged Isabel and walked into the elevator without looking back. At that moment, I felt a rush of heat between my legs, and a warm liquid flowed down my thighs. I looked down in despair, seeing that dazzling red. My child. No. I can't lose him. He's my only family in this world. A surge of hatred and strength, from who knows where, swept through my entire body, and I violently broke free from the bodyguard's grip, using all my strength to rush towards the fire escape in the opposite direction. Catch her. I couldn't think of anything else. I had only one thought: escape. I fumbled in my bag for an old phone I had prepared long ago but never used, and dialed a number I knew by heart. Julian. Save me. Adrian. You destroyed 5 years of my deep affection, and now you want to kill my child. I, Serafina, swear to heaven, today's humiliation, I will make you repay with the entire Shin Corporation, in blood. I don't know how I escaped that building. I only remember the bodyguard's angry roars behind me, and the waves of tearing, wrenching pain in my abdomen. The cold wind poured into my thin clothes, and I clutched my stomach, fleeing like a stray dog under the dazzling neon lights of the city. Every inch of my skin screamed in pain, but I dared not stop. I feared that if I stopped, I would be caught and dragged back to that hell, and my child and I would be strangled by that man's own hands. Fresh blood dripped constantly down my inner thighs, taking away the warmth of my body, and my last strength with it. Just as my consciousness was fading and I was about to collapse on the roadside, a beam of blinding headlights suddenly illuminated me. A black Phaeton stopped steadily in front of me. The door opened, and a man in a white coat, with a gentle temperament, rushed out and supported me. Sera. Julian's voice was filled with suppressed anger and heartache. Get in the car. He half carried and half supported me into the car, immediately took off his coat and covered me with it, and then stepped on the gas, the car instantly merging into the traffic. To my private clinic. You're bleeding, it needs to be treated immediately. He looked at my pale face, his eyes reddening. Julian was my senior in college, and the only one who knew the secret of my blood type. He had advised me countless times to leave Adrian, saying that such a man was not worth it. I had agreed with him on an emergency contact method in case of unforeseen circumstances, but I naively thought I would never need it. The baby. My baby. I clutched his arm tightly, my consciousness already beginning to dissipate. Don't be afraid, I'm here. The baby will be fine. Julian's voice was firm and powerful, giving me a thread of support. The car finally stopped in front of an extremely secluded private clinic. After emergency treatment, the child in my womb was miraculously saved. But because of excessive blood loss, my body was extremely weak. Lying in the hospital bed, I looked at the ceiling, my eyes empty. Julian sat by the bed, peeling an apple, and said softly, I've made arrangements. Tonight, there will be a car accident. A car identical to the taxi you took when you escaped will lose control and plunge into the river, erupting in flames. Inside the car will be a charred female corpse, similar to your figure, an unidentified body I found in the morgue. The news Adrian receives will be that his blood bag died in an accident while escaping, and was buried at the bottom of the river. I turned my head and looked at him. Thank you, Julian. His hand paused and he smiled bitterly. You never have to thank me. I only hate myself for not taking you away from him sooner. He handed me a new phone and an anonymous bank card. There's enough money in here. I've contacted my tutor abroad. He has a top medical research center there. You can go there and take care of your pregnancy in peace. No one will be able to find you. From the moment you board that plane, there will be no more Serafina in the world. I held the phone, looking at the distant glittering city night scene, where 5 years of my youth and love had been. Now it would all be burned to ashes in that fire. I gently stroked my still flat abdomen, where my only hope was growing. Baby, don't be afraid. Mommy will take you away from here. From now on, we will live for ourselves. Adrian learned of Serafina's death an hour later. At that time, he was in Isabel's VIP ward, intently peeling an apple for her. Assistant Liam's voice sounded behind him, with a suppressed tremor. Mr. Adrian, the police just called. The taxi, miss. Serafina was riding in lost control and plunged into the Binjiang River. The vehicle caught fire and exploded. A charred female corpse was found in the car. Her identity is unidentifiable, but Ms. Serafina's belongings were found at the scene. Adrian's apple-peeling motion paused only slightly. He didn't even turn around, and a fleeting trace of annoyance flashed across his handsome face. Death? He asked casually, his tone so cold that there wasn't a trace of warmth, as if he were talking about a broken, unimportant object. What a pain to deal with. He handed the peeled apple to Isabel, his voice instantly becoming gentle. Did I scare you? Just an unimportant person. A faint smile squeezed onto Isabel's pale face as she obediently leaned into his arms. Adrian turned back and coldly gave the assistant an order. Take care of her funeral. I don't want to hear any more news about her. Yes, Mr. Adrian. He thought Serafina's death merely saved him a bit of trouble. He didn't know it was only the beginning of his long hell. In the 2 months after Serafina's death, Adrian's life seemed to return to normal. He accompanied Isabel as always, gentle, considerate, and attentive. The entire high society was buzzing with rumors that Mr. Adrian and Ms. Isabel were about to get married. However, no one knew he hadn't returned to the villa he'd shared with Serafina for 5 years. He was afraid. He was afraid of the deathly silence and cold air that greeted him when he opened the door. There was no familiar warm light, no slender figure rushing to greet him, take his coat, and offer him slippers. He attributed this inexplicable restlessness to not being used to it. Until one day, Isabel said with a coquettish laugh that she wanted to see the villa, to see where he lived. Adrian couldn't refuse. After 2 months, he opened that door again. The housekeeper had cleaned the house spotless. All traces of Serafina had been wiped clean. The closet was empty, the dressing table was empty, and even in the bathroom, her favorite shampoo was gone. She was like a gust of wind, having come and then disappeared completely. The nameless fire in Adrian's heart burned even brighter. He didn't like this feeling of losing control. Isabel excitedly toured the villa, finally stopping in front of the nightstand in the master bedroom, and picking up a forgotten velvet box. Adrian, what's this? Adrian's heart skipped a beat. It was the pair of rings he'd bought for Serafina's birthday last year, after she'd begged him. He'd thought it childish and refused to wear it, so she'd treasured them and put them away herself. Isabel curiously opened the box. Inside lay a platinum men's ring, simple in design, but with a line of small words engraved on the inside, A and S. Adrian and Serafina. How tacky, Isabel said with a pout, casually throwing the ring into the trash can. In that instant, Adrian's heart felt like it had been stabbed hard with a needle. He actually subconsciously wanted to pick it up. That night, he stayed overnight at the villa for the first time in a long time but couldn't sleep. The space beside him was empty, without that warm body, without that light breathing. The huge double bed seemed incredibly empty. He got up irritably, went to the study to find a document, but in the corner of a drawer, he saw a locked diary. It was Serafina's. On a whim, he found tools and pried the lock open. On the title page, in graceful handwriting, was a sentence. My world has light today. The date was the day they met. Adrian's heart jolted, and he turned to the next page. It was full of records about him. Adrian praised my cooking today. I'm so happy. He took me to the amusement park and won me a teddy bear. He doesn't know, it was the first time I've been to an amusement park in over 20 years. He said he loves me, he said I'm his. I'm willing to give him everything I have, including my blood, my life. Page after page, that humble and ardent love seemed to burn his eyes through the paper. He flipped to the last page. The handwriting was scrawled and messy, blurred by large patches of tear stains. He said my blood shouldn't be wasted on a bastard. So I'm just a walking blood bag. Adrian, you're so cruel. Baby, I'm sorry Mom can't protect you. If there's a next life, don't meet someone like your father again. The diary slipped from his trembling hands and fell to the ground. Bastard. Bloodbag. The 2 most cruel words he had spoken himself at this moment turned into 2 sharp knives, stabbing fiercely into his heart, churning back and forth. A sense of overwhelming panic and regret, like a tsunami, instantly submerged him. He staggered back, knocking over the bookshelf behind him. Expensive books and ornaments fell to the ground. He suddenly looked at his wrist. The tattoo representing the Rh blood type, at this moment, was like a brand sizzling on his skin, scalding his soul and making it tremble. He was wrong. He was terribly wrong. The girl who loved him with her entire youth, the woman who happily carried his child, was pushed into hell by his own hands. Ah! A roar of extreme pain burst from the depths of his throat. He held his head and knelt on the ground in agony. Just then, his phone rang wildly. It was the hospital calling. Mr. Adrian. It's bad. Miss Isabel suddenly went into shock. She needs an emergency blood transfusion, but the blood in our stock, she had an adverse reaction as soon as it was infused. Adrian held the phone, his mind blank. He just held that diary, muttering to himself over and over again. Sera? I was wrong. Sera? And 10,000 miles away in Switzerland, Serafina was stroking her slightly bulging belly, looking at the snow-capped mountains outside the window, her eyes cold and firm. Baby, wait a little longer. Our revenge has only just begun. Adrian was dragged from the villa to the hospital by his assistant Liam. His whole person seemed to have his soul sucked away. His eyes were bloodshot, and his body exuded a strong smell of alcohol, clutching Serafina's diary tightly in his arms. Outside the VIP ward hallway, Isabel's parents were crying anxiously, and when they saw Adrian, they rushed over as if they had seen a savior. Adrian, you must think of a way. The doctor said Bella's condition is very dangerous. Adrian pushed them away expressionlessly and rushed straight into the attending doctor's office, locking the door behind him. Speak. He grabbed the doctor's white coat and pinned him against the wall, his voice as hoarse as a demon from hell. What exactly is wrong with her body? The doctor was pale with fright at his manic appearance, and trembled as he picked up a report from the table. Mr. Adrian. We only just discovered it. Miss Isabel's body, because of long-term, single acceptance of Rh-null blood from Ms. Serafina, has developed a rare adaptive immune dependence. Adrian's pupils shrank. What do you mean? The doctor was almost suffocating from his grip, and explained with difficulty. It means that her immune system has been completely transformed. It now only recognizes Ms. Serafina's blood. Any blood from other sources, no matter how well the blood type matches, will be regarded as an invader by her body, producing a fatal rejection reaction. In other words, Ms. Serafina's blood was once the panacea to save her, but now it has become her only antidote, and all other blood is poison to her. The doctor's words were like thunderclaps exploding in Adrian's ears. Only recognizes Serafina's blood? So what he killed with his own hands was not a replaceable blood bag, but Isabel's only irreplaceable lifesaver. And he personally cut off his last bit of justifiable excuse. A mouthful of bloody black blood suddenly spurted from Adrian's mouth, splashing on the doctor's snow-white wall, shocking to the eye. He staggered, releasing his grip, his body sliding limply against the wall to the ground, emitting a dying beast-like croaking wail. He was wrong. He was wrong from the start. Serafina's sentence, "Do you know what my blood is?" echoed repeatedly in his mind at this moment, like the most vicious curse. That was not a simple panda blood type. That was a unique, her own golden blood. It was blood that could save people, and also kill people. Great remorse and despair were like sulfuric acid, corroding his internal organs until they were riddled with holes. Why didn't he believe her? Why did he force her to a dead end? He suddenly raised his bloodshot head, as if grasping the last trace of sanity, staring fixedly at the bloodstains on the wall. No, she's not dead. He laughed madly, his laughter shrill, filled with the joy of surviving a catastrophe. She won't die. She's so afraid of pain. How could she choose such a tragic death of falling into the river and exploding? It's her. She designed this. This is her revenge on me. As if he had figured something out, he suddenly got up from the ground and rushed out of the office. In the corridor, Isabel's parents saw him and rushed up crying again. But Adrian pushed them away, his eyes cold and crazy. What does her life or death have to do with me? He left these words and rushed out of the hospital without looking back. He was going to find her. He was going to investigate. She was so smart. She must have left clues. She must be waiting for him to find her. Adrian rushed into the cold rain, letting the rain wash his burning cheeks. He roared to the sky, shouting the name he had personally abandoned over and over again. Serafina. He didn't know that his sudden awakening was already meaningless to Serafina. He had no idea that his frantic search would be, step by step, within her calculations. 5 years later. Sea City, a dazzling commercial gala gathering the world's top capital, was in full swing. The appearance of a woman instantly attracted everyone's attention. She was wearing a fitted red velvet gown, its tailored cut accentuating her exquisite figure. Her long hair was slightly curled, her red lips like fire, and her beautiful eyes sparkled with a cold arrogance and composure that surveyed everything. She was no longer the humble and timid Serafina of 5 years ago. She was now Celine, Wall Street's hottest investment queen. And the true helmsman behind Yuanxing Capital, founded by Julian. Miss Celine, I've heard so much about you. Celine gracefully raised her glass, a distant smile curving her lips. You're too kind. However, her gaze fell, seemingly unintentionally, on the corner of the banquet hall. There stood a man. He was gaunt, his suit hanging loosely on his frame, and the once spirited face was now marked only by deep-seated exhaustion and gloom. It was Adrian. 5 years was enough to change so much. Serafina's death was like a thorn embedded in Adrian's bones. He searched frantically, using all his resources, turning the earth upside down, but to no avail. His business empire, due to his inattention and reckless investment, was already teetering on the brink. And Isabel had become a true living dead, relying on expensive medical equipment to maintain her last breath in the VIP ward, enduring the torment of immune system failure day after day. As if sensing something, Adrian suddenly looked up. The moment his gaze met Celine's in the air, his entire world collapsed. It was the face he had dreamed of, engraved in his bones. She wasn't dead. She really wasn't dead. Overwhelmed by immense joy, he stumbled, rushing towards her recklessly. Sera. He called out her name hoarsely, his eyes filled with the madness and obsession of something lost and found. However, before he could get close, he was stopped by a tall figure. Julian stood in front of Celine, looking at him with cold eyes. Mr. Adrian, please control yourself. Get out of my way. Adrian roared like a raging beast, trying to push Julian aside. Just then, a well-behaved little boy in a suit, with delicate features, poked his head out from behind Celine, curiously watching the spectacle before him, and asked in a childish voice, Mommy, who is this uncle? He looks scary. Mommy? Adrian froze in place, staring intently at the child. That little face between the eyebrows bore 7 similarities to him. He looked sharply at Celine, his voice trembling. Sarah? Is he? Celine finally walked forward slowly, looking down at him condescendingly. Her red lips parted slightly, uttering the most cruel words. Mr. Adrian, long time no see. Her eyes were as calm as a stagnant pool, devoid of love or hate. As if looking at a stranger, someone completely unrelated to her life. Adrian's world completely disintegrated at that. Mr. Adrian. She called him Mr. Adrian. How distant, how ironic. He stared at the child, who looked about 4 or 5 years old the time. It all added up. Sarah, he's my son, isn't he? He pleaded, the last trace of reason in his eyes ignited by a flame called hope. He's our child. Hearing this, Celine chuckled softly, the laughter crisp and pleasant, but like an ice-cold knife, piercing Adrian's heart. She reached out, pulling the child into her arms, gently stroking his hair, then raised her eyes, looking at Adrian, her eyes full of mockery and pity. Mr. Adrian, are you out of your mind? Let me introduce. She turned sideways, intimately linking her arm with Julian's, leaning her head on his shoulder. This is my husband, Julian. And this child is called Noah. Noah, call Daddy. Daddy! The little boy immediately called out sweetly, hugging Julian's leg, his face full of affection. Husband. Daddy. Adrian was struck by lightning. He looked in disbelief at the happy scene of the family of 3 before him. A scene that stung his eyes. No. Impossible. He roared like a madman. Serafina. You're lying to me. The child in your belly is mine. You can't let him call someone else Dad. He rushed forward recklessly, trying to grab Serafina's arm, but Julian's bodyguards held him down firmly. The surrounding guests had already been attracted by the commotion, pointing and gossiping about Adrian. Isn't that Mr. Adrian from the Shun Corporation? Why is he acting like a madman? I heard he's been searching for his dead wife for the past few years, almost bankrupting the company in the process. Julian and his wife from Farstar Capital must have triggered him, right? Celine coldly watched Adrian, struggling desperately on the ground, his image completely shattered. She slowly squatted down and said softly, in a voice only they could hear, "Adrian, didn't you ask me if I was worthy to be compared to Isabel? Now I'll tell you, you aren't even worthy to carry my husband's shoes. Also, my son has a very special blood type. He's very healthy, very cute. Unlike your bastard, who didn't even get a chance to be born." Having said that, she stood up, never looking at him again, took Julian's arm, and with their child left calmly in the gaze of the crowd. "No, Sarah. Come back." Adrian's desperate roar was drowned out by the elegant music in the banquet hall. He lay like an abandoned stray dog on the cold floor, watching her throw herself into another man's arms, watching his son call another man dad. His heart felt like it had been hollowed out alive, the pain suffocating him. He finally understood that Serafina's death faint 5 years ago wasn't the end of revenge. It was the beginning of her most cruel, 5-year-long slow slicing of him. From that night on, Adrian went completely mad. He abandoned all resistance, allowing Celine and Julian's Farstar Capital to gradually devour and acquire the Shin Group. He had only one goal, to take back Serafina and the child at all costs. He started stalking her, appearing outside Celine's company building, her apartment entrance, and even outside her son's kindergarten. He used the most despicable means to get a strand of the child's hair and have a paternity test done. When the report showing a 99% probability of paternity was placed in front of him, he cried, then laughed, like a complete madman. He took the report and rushed to Celine's office, kneeling before her, weeping bitterly. "Sarah, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please forgive me, okay? Look, he's my son. You can't deprive me of my right to be a father. I'll give you the Shin Corporation. I'll give you my life. Give me another chance, and we can live together as a family of 3. Celine just sat coldly behind her desk, watching his humble, dust-like appearance, her eyes without the slightest ripple. "Adrian, you've got one thing wrong. My purpose in returning isn't to hear your apology, nor is it to rekindle our relationship." She stood up, walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, and looked down at the city beneath her feet. "I've come back to take back everything that should have been mine, including your company, your wealth, and your lofty dignity. As for you," she turned around, looking down at him kneeling on the ground, "you and your apology are worthless. You owe me a life. My son's life." Adrian's all hope was shattered by her words. He was dragged out of the office by the security guards like garbage. He knew that Serafina would never turn back. Her heart had already been killed by him on that cold operating table 5 years ago. In despair, a more insane, more twisted idea formed in his mind. If he couldn't have her, then he would destroy her. If she refused to forgive him, then he would use the most tragic way to make her remember him forever. He sold all his remaining assets and anonymously deposited that huge sum into a Swiss medical research fund. Then he went to see Isabel, lying on the hospital bed, no longer human. He looked at this woman whom he once thought he loved to the bone, his eyes terrifyingly calm. "Isabel, thank you for letting me see what I've lost." Having said that, he personally turned off the machine that was keeping her alive. The alarm sounded instantly throughout the ward. In the heart-wrenching cries of Isabel's parents, Adrian calmly walked out of the hospital and made his last phone call. It was to Julian. "Julian, I lost. Help me tell Serafina, I'm using 2 lives to repay her for 1. Is that enough? Even in death, I will make her live in my shadow for the rest of her life, and she'll never be able to forget me." Julian was in the lab analyzing a blood report when he received Adrian's call. On the other end of the line, Adrian's voice was eerily calm, like the dead silence before a storm. "Julian, I lost. I lost completely. Help me tell Serafina, I'm using 2 lives to repay her for 1. Is that enough? I'm using Isabel's life to repay our unborn child. And I'm using my life to atone for my sins of the past 5 years." Alarm bells rang in Julian's head, and he shouted sharply, "Adrian, what trick are you trying to pull now?" Adrian on the other end of the phone chuckled softly, the laughter filled with madness and liberation. "Trick? No, this is the last thing I can do for her. Doesn't she hate me? Doesn't she want me to suffer? Then I'll die in the most painful way possible, so she'll never be able to forget me. So every time she sees our son, she'll think of me, his sinful father. Even in death, I will become a wound in her heart that can never heal. Julian, do you think you've won? You'll always just be a substitute. In her heart, from beginning to end, there's only me. Where is he? Julian's heart sank to the bottom. Andrew's hospital. The rooftop. The phone hung up. Julian immediately dialed Celine's number, his voice more panicked and urgent than ever before. Sarah. Something bad happened. It's Adrian. He turned off Isabel's life support system and now he seems to be on the rooftop of St. Andrew's hospital. He's going to commit suicide. Celine was helping her son build blocks when she heard this. Her hand trembled violently, and the tall building made of blocks collapsed with a crash. The color drained from her face. Suicide. Ending everything in this way. No, she wouldn't allow it. Her revenge wasn't complete. Why should he die so easily? Why should he use his death to put a lifelong moral shackle on her? I'm going there now. Celine grabbed the car keys and rushed out like a madwoman, without even explaining to her son. St. Andrew's Hospital is one of the tallest buildings in High City. When Celine and Julian arrived, the bottom of the building was already surrounded by police cars and fire trucks, and a huge air cushion had been spread out. They rushed to the rooftop, where the wind was so strong that it was almost impossible to stand. Adrian was standing on the edge of the rooftop, his back to them, his thin figure swaying precariously in the wind, as if he would be swallowed up at any moment. Adrian! Celine shouted hoarsely. Adrian slowly turned around. His face held no fear, no regret, only a strange, contented smile. He opened his arms, as if to embrace the whole world, or to embrace the lover he had forever lost. Sarah, you're here. He smiled, but tears streamed down the corners of his eyes. You see, you still care about me. Don't come any closer. Celine watched his dangerous actions, her heart in her throat. Get down here. We haven't settled our score yet. It's settled, Sarah. Adrian shook his head, his eyes fixed on her in a daze. It's settled with my life. I love you, Sarah. I always have, I do now, and I will in the next life. If there's a next life, let me wait for you. After saying that, he took one last deep look at her, his eyes filled with love, regret, madness, and reluctance. Then he leaned back, his whole body like a kite with a broken string, plummeting straight down. No. Celine let out a piercing scream and rushed to the edge of the rooftop, but she only had time to see his disappearing figure. At that moment, time seemed to stand still. All the strength in her body was drained, and she collapsed softly to the ground, her mind blank. He was dead. He ended everything in the most resolute and tragic way. And with his death he built her a permanent prison called guilt. Adrian's death became the biggest news in High City. The fall of a business tycoon, accompanied by entanglements of love and hate, became fodder for countless people's after-dinner conversations. And Celine became the femme fatale, pushed to the forefront of this tragedy. The media dug up events from 5 years ago, saying she was ruthless and drove her ex-husband to his death. Celine locked herself in her apartment for 3 days and 3 nights, not eating or drinking. She didn't understand why things had developed to this point. She should have been the victor, but why was her heart empty, without a trace of the joy of revenge, instead enveloped in a huge feeling of suffocation? Adrian's final gaze lingered in her mind like a nightmare. It was Julian and her son Noah who knocked on her door. 4-year-old Noah hugged her leg, looking up with a face that resembled Adrian's, timidly asking, "Mommy, do you not want Noah anymore? People outside are saying you killed that uncle." Looking at her son's clear and worried eyes, Celine's heart felt like it had been stabbed hard. She suddenly hugged her son tightly, tears streaming down her face. "No, Mommy doesn't not want you. Mommy will never not want you." Yes, she still had her son. She couldn't fall. For her son, she had to break free from the cage that Adrian had built for her with his death. A month later, Celine, as the CEO of Yuanqing Capital, held a press conference. Facing countless flashing lights and sharp questions, she calmly told everything that had happened 5 years ago. From how she became a blood bag, to how Adrian forced her to abort the child, and then to how she escaped death. She didn't embellish anything, just stated the facts. When she said, "Your blood cannot be wasted on a bastard," the whole place erupted in uproar. Public opinion instantly reversed. It turned out it wasn't a femme fatale, but a desperate woman who had been driven to the brink, making a last stand. At the end of the press conference, Celine bowed deeply to the camera. "I deeply regret Mr. Adrian's death, but the grievances between us ended completely the moment he chose to fall from the building. From now on there will be no more Serafina, only Celine. I will lead Yuanxing Capital, and I will also establish a charity foundation named after my son Noah, dedicated to the research and rescue of rare blood-type diseases. Thank you all." After speaking, she left calmly, escorted by Julian. Another spring arrived. By the Aegean Sea, sunshine, beaches, flowers, white houses. Celine was wearing a comfortable cotton dress, sitting on a swing in the yard, watching Julian, not far away, holding Noah's hand and chasing the waves on the beach. The laughter of the father and son was clear and warm. Julian turned around and smiled gently at her. Celine also smiled, a smile from the bottom of her heart, relieved and happy. The phone on the table vibrated. It was an encrypted text message from an unknown number. No words, just a picture. In the picture was Adrian's tombstone, on which beloved wife was not engraved, but a line of small words. "If there is an afterlife, let me wait for you." In front of the tombstone was a bouquet of fresh, Celine's favorite red roses. A few seconds later, another text message came, with only one sentence. "He has atoned. You are free. Take care." Celine looked at the line of words and didn't move for a long time. She knew that this was the final farewell from the mysterious person who had saved her 5 years ago and helped her for 5 years. She looked up and looked into the distance. The sea breeze gently blew her long hair, and the warm sunlight shone on her. She completely deleted the text message, along with the number. Then she got up and walked towards her husband and her son. "Adrian, you used your death to draw a period. And I finally, personally opened a brand new chapter for my life. This time, there is no hatred, no shackles. Only love and the future. Farewell, Adrian. Never to meet again."